Welcome, everybody, to another episode of the Men's Sexual Mastery Podcast. Today, we are excited to be diving into the topic of non-ejaculatory orgasms. This is a topic that comes up a lot in our community, in our brotherhood, and many guys ask, how do I know if I've had a non-ejaculatory orgasms? What are the characteristics of it? Can you tell me what are the quickest tools to get there and tips? And that's what we're going to be diving into a little bit today. So, Hawks, I would love to start by passing it off to you and hear your answer to the question of what is a non-ejaculatory orgasm in your experience?
Well, yeah, it's funny when you mentioned like tools and tips and tricks. I actually feel called to go in a completely different direction. And I know you'll resonate with this because we've talked about this a lot, but to me, it's actually about letting go of what we think it is or should be or will be and just releasing that and opening ourselves up to be with what is. And for me, and I'll name I've shifted to actually not speaking about a lot of my personal experiences in any depth, because I think that has the potential to just perpetuate this planting of seeds in other people's minds of what it is. And it's this reaching for something that's this hypothetical, like theorized experience based on someone else's words, what they've shared. And then it can create a block actually in people of feeling like, well, I mean, what I just experienced, like it felt good. It was really nice, but like it wasn't as good as the painting I pictured from hearing Hawks or Ben describe their experience. So for me, the journey of opening up to experience non-ejaculatory orgasms is really about opening up to experience the orgasmic state as it is. And it's a big shift from the traditional experience of ejaculatory peak orgasms, where there's this spasmodic, contractionary, very pleasureful, incredibly acute peak experience that it's very clear to tell, okay, that happened. And there was even this physical release of ejaculation that happened. And now I'm coming down the other side of it. And it's like, wow, that definitely happened. Non-ejaculatory orgasms, in my experience, are more of a state of being. And again, without getting into specific stories of times when there are more of a tangible experience that I could try and narrate or like paint a picture of, but I don't want to do that because I don't want to plant seeds in people's minds about what it is or should be or what they're looking to experience to then have the confirmation of, okay, I did the thing. It's really about like how much can we tap into the pleasure, the high vibrational experience of being in an orgasmic state of bliss, and to just be in that and allow ourselves to open up to that, to feel it, to breathe it, to receive it, and to let go of some end goal that then tells us we've reached some finish line, because that's the old way of an ejaculatory release. It's very clear there's a finish line and then you're done, and there's a rest period that's required after that. Non-ejaculatory orgasms, orgasmic states of being, can last for long periods of time, and they're incredibly generative. And we get to decide when, okay, now it's time to settle this energy and let it come back down and integrate into our body. And then we get to take that with us into the rest of our day and life and partnership and connection. So that's a little bit about what comes up for me. Mm-hmm. How about you?
Well, I appreciate you sharing it, bro. Yeah, everything you said resonates. And, you know, in a lot of the tantric teachings that I've learned from, early on, they talk about a lot about that bliss state, and I'm glad you mentioned that. This is a state that we can actually reach in deep meditation, you could say. And that's the best comparison I can give to it. And that's hopefully that kind of helps blow some people's minds open a little bit. Like, these states can be reached without touching yourself at all. Sometimes, I've had these states happen, of course, with sexual energy. It's, as we talk about, like, it's an amplifier. It binds and amplifies. So it's going to make it much easier to reach more quickly. It's like rocket fuel for your meditation or for these practices, breath work. And it's the merging of these. But I've had these experiences even in meditation to limited amounts, and like Qigong. I remember the first time I had that kind of orgasmic state that we're talking about, not necessarily an orgasm. It's orgasmic state, as you said, coming from some of these practices that actually didn't have anything to do with sex. And I think along those lines, if we bring in the meditation approach to these practices of, we're not seeking, like when you're sitting in meditation and you're noticing like, oh man, I just had like a really powerful opening or a sensation. As soon as you grab it or seek it or try to recreate it or control it, it darts away. And it's the same thing I would say here, so really invitation for any brother who's beginning some of these practices or some of these teachings to really, I just want to echo what you said, like, let go of trying to get somewhere, because actually it's unlearning the programming that we received, in this very intense form of sexual release through ejaculation. And there's nothing wrong with it. We say all the time, it's a beautiful expression, but if you're just doing that all the time, you're not only are you frying your nervous system, but you're also lowering your sensitivity to experience these other things. So that's what I would add into there. Mm-hmm. Is there anything that comes up with you around that?
Yeah, this line, like, the process, or the outcome is the process, is what comes up for me. And in that shift of, this is where I think a lot of the beauty lies, in rewiring ourselves to be able to experience arousal, and especially sex with a partner, without ejaculation at the end. One of the things that does is it allows us to shift from the outcome being the ejaculatory orgasm, being like the highlight of the experience, which happens in a really short period of time. Mm-hmm. And then the whole experience can become, in some ways, sometimes condensed into that one ejaculatory peak experience. When we remove that from the equation, now the entire process of that lovemaking, the connection with our partner, the building and cultivating of that energy, the heightening of arousal, the opening of the heart, all of that becomes the outcome. It's the whole process. The journey is what it's all about. And there's so much in there for us that's nourishing and fulfilling in ways that one peak ejaculatory orgasm actually isn't. That can be a really nice cherry on top. And like you said, like, we're not against having those. Welcome them when they come, and it's a natural process. And hallelujah that we can have ejaculatory orgasms, because this is what brings babies into the world. Mm-hmm. It's beautiful. And we're not trying to make a baby every time we have sex, typically. So what else is there that we could potentially be missing if we're having an ejaculation every time we have sex? It's removing that then can open up this whole other world of what's possible during the process itself. And this is feedback that we get from men all of the time in the program, going through this, like, holy shit, that was incredible. I feel so fulfilled. I feel so connected with my partner. I had so much pleasure. I'm feeling charged up, and I didn't have an ejaculation at the end of the lovemaking.
Mm-hmm.
And once that energy integrated, I didn't feel any less fulfilled. I didn't feel like I sacrificed something of importance to me. I actually feel like I was able to really receive what was actually behind the whole desire to connect and to have sex. Is it's not the ejaculation at the end of it that is like what is really magnetizing people together to make love. It's the making of the love. That's why it's called making love. It's like one of the highest vibrational frequencies out there. And when we can co-create that with a partner, that's the beauty. Mm-hmm. And to be able to really be with that and to rest in it and to breathe in it and to allow every cell in our body to vibrate at that frequency, that's opening up to the orgasmic state that's mm-hmm. possible mm-hmm. long before an ejaculation happens. And it's completely separate from that. And it's mm-hmm. actually happening during the process itself. And so the outcome is the process.
Yeah. And I know that we've mentioned before to brothers, and we talk about this, this aspect that this is actually what women can often connect with much more easily than men. Mm-hmm. This ability to have these much longer rolling full body orgasmic bliss states, and when we as men enter the bedroom with an objective, and we're not there for the process like you're talking about, and we're just aimed towards getting that ejaculation off, or maybe our partner is doing the same thing unconsciously, just trying to satisfy her man, and get that validation, like that's okay. But if you actually want to explore the depths of the yin, you could say, the yin to the yang, the feminine orgasm as compared to the masculine, the outward explosive orgasm, exploring that more inward state and the depths that can come with that. Like this is a way to attune to our female partners and to last much, much, much longer, and to actually begin to sync up with the feeling she's having, and some of the subtle sensations that she's having in our body. And we can't, like, I had no idea that this was even possible until I began this journey, years ago. But this is what's possible for us. And when we talk about deepening love, like you're speaking of, and deepening union, like when we're able to actually have that depth to, and that capacity to meet our partner in her sexual state, her sexual wavelength, if you will, to match with that, that's when we can really bind even deeper and deeper, in the roots of love with our partner. So all of this to say, like, our ability, there's so many side benefits, of course, to all of these practices, and having non-ejaculatory orgasms, and, over time, allowing your orgasms to start to separate from ejaculation, which can have, similar big spiking, very clear orgasmic, non-ejaculatory orgasmic states later on, but those just happen when they're meant to. But all of these things are just byproducts, of the process. And again, I just want to mention, we talk about it all the time in this work, but like having more presence in your relationship, not just in lovemaking in the bedroom, but lovemaking in day-to-day life is a huge one. Having more focus, having more vitality and drive and energy, waking up with, stronger erections, higher libido, higher creativity, and, just, you could say sensitivity in a way. Like we've had brothers share that their personal practices of meditation or breath work or qigong or martial arts have all amplified. Like this energy is just, it spreads into every single aspect of our lives. So, a lot of guys come in really, intrigued by the non-ejaculatory orgasm, and it's awesome. But it is important to say that, like, it's just a byproduct, as you mentioned, to this process. And at the core of it, there's actually tons and tons of other benefits of other areas of our life. But I would say putting love in the center of all of this, and presence, is really what this work is all about. And those things just come as a cherry on top. So Yeah, I just wanted to echo everything you said.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the word connection kept coming up for me as you were sharing there, Ben. The the vitality and well-being in our system that comes when we are feeling truly connected, and that could be connected with ourself, connected with our partner, connected with spirit, which, as you were speaking to, through learning to cultivate these energies and create that containment within ourselves to hold more of this energy, allows us to amplify our connection to all that is, to spirit or creator, or universe or God or Mother Earth, whatever, language suits you. That ability of us to connect with what is inside and outside of us is amplified by the amount of energy that we can create within ourselves and the amount of opening and connection with our heart and with our true essence. And one of the interesting things with an ejaculation for men is that it can actually create disconnection and isolation. That's not always the case. They're harmonious, and there's great ways to have ejaculations, and they can create more connection. But if we look at just the most, classic isolated expression of an ejaculation for a man, maybe he's watching porn alone by himself behind closed doors, jerking off, and has an ejaculation. Like, is that actually creating more connection in your life or disconnection and isolation? And they say isolation is the root of all disease. It's like, we look at cancer, for example. Like, cancer manifests when a cell forgets or becomes disconnected with the system as a whole, and it starts to think, oh shit, like, it's just me here. I need to multiply and multiply and multiply, because it's not understanding it's actually connected to something much bigger than itself, and it creates this malignant proliferation of cells that create a tumor, and it's isolation that creates dis-ease and disease within us. And so the medicine to that is connection. And we can also see this in the refractory period after an ejaculation. If you're in partnership, we've all, as men, I'm sure, experienced at some point a dip in our attraction and connection to a partner after an ejaculation. It just happens. There's hormonal shifts that happen that feed into that. And again, it's not to say that it's bad or wrong, and not to say that that's always the case, but it's possible. It's a fairly likely outcome. And so by choosing to withhold that ejaculation, at least some of the time, we're able to cultivate and build this higher level of connection. And then after the lovemaking comes to a completion, all of that connection is still there. That magnetism, that charge is still there. And that's the like peak experience. If you want to look at where, what's the carrot, where do I get that level of, fulfillment, satisfaction, and the gift from it all, you get to take that with you in the minutes, hours, and days following that experience. And it's this long, prolonged peak experience of greater connection with self, greater connection with your partner, greater connection with your purpose, more energy to bring into the world for that. And it's a little piece on connection, because connection's the medicine.
Yeah, and directing that energy not into a screen or a device, or something that is fake, doesn't actually exist in your reality, but like this desire, this impulse, this sexual drive within us is meant for us to connect, with others. And the more that we hang on to that energy instead of just releasing it because it's making us uncomfortable, the more we learn how to build that energy within us and acclimate to it and allow our nervous systems to move with it, it can start to become pleasure, and it can start to become, we say, an overflowing cup. And then we can enter connection with an abundance of energy and well-being within ourselves and love, and sexual vitality, and not from a place of depletion where we're needing to extract from partners or, get enmeshed and draw and pull from our partners. So I appreciated you bringing that in. And, something I did want to bring in here to this conversation is some nuts and bolts, because I know guys we're just very nuts and bolts minded. I know we all want it, like, come on, give me something I can practice, or some concept. And something I wanted to speak to was, and again, this is just my frame on this. A lot of this stuff is like very emergent. In time, I'm sure we'll be able to hook up, EEG monitors and heart rate variability and all these machines to be able to monitor like what's happening to people, especially in the extrasensory perceptions, and some of these things that we're just now, like the toroidal heart field and some of this stuff, we're just starting to measure. But, in my personal experience and having worked with hundreds of guys in this, what I've mapped, at least in my perception in this work, is that, there's the sympathetic nervous system response, the parasympathetic nervous system response, and by and large, I'd say like the ejaculatory orgasm is a sympathetic nervous system response. We're clenching, we're closing. You notice your shoulders draw in, your muscles are tightening everywhere right before that ejaculation. And generally, like these states of the non-ejaculatory state or orgasm we're talking about, I find come from the parasympathetic state when under high stimulation. Or not always, but the high stimulation sexually is like what's going to be that binding and amplifying that, rocket fuel that's coming into the situation. If you can imagine sitting and meditating, you can enter that super deep parasympathetic state and like touch these transcendent states of being. If you can imagine sitting and meditating while you're getting a blowjob and reaching the same depth of equanimity and parasympathetic relaxation, complete release of all of it, I would offer, in my own theory, that would be like a quick way to get there. So something that we're doing in this work is learning to pattern interrupt that autonomic nervous system response when we're being stimulated. You'll notice if you're coming from a place of craving, if you're coming from a place of seeking, of desiring, of moving towards an outcome, more than likely your breathing's going to be shallow, your body's going to be tense, and you're going to be moving towards that sympathetic nervous system response in relationship to sex. So what we're doing with all these practices, we say, is, we have a whole bunch of psychosomatic tools or training wheels to pattern interrupt that autonomic nervous system response, that neural pathway, and reprogram it into parasympathetic, into deeper breathing, slowing down, and allowing the sensations to build without any attachment to any of it. And that would be like the simplest, most concise roadmap I would give for guys in how this works. Would you throw anything else in there, Hawks?
Yeah. Even when it comes to having an ejaculation, as you named, it is a sympathetic nervous. It's like our nervous system is moving predominantly in the sympathetic activation when we're having that tension and release ejaculation response. And because again, ejaculation isn't bad. It's not wrong. It's a natural process. And it's something that in a healthy, robust sexual life, we're going to have ejaculations periodically. And that's all great. There's also a way to allow ourselves to be in that ejaculatory orgasm while still softening and relaxing and opening. And that's some of this other repatterning. And I like how you spoke to that. If we look at what's happening, like any man who's sat in front of a computer jerking off, if you really observe yourself, notice like you're likely starting to tense up and close off, and the body's going into this this guarded protection kind of response, and the pelvic floor is contracting and tightening and squeezing. And it's all of this tension building up to a release. if we're choosing to have an intentional ejaculation, if it's a harmonious time for us to have that release, then we can also start to play around with like, how much can I remain open while this ejaculation is happening? Can I still be breathing deeply? Can I still keep my body open? And can I soften the pelvic floor even as that's happening? And it's a different experience, and actually it has different energetic implications as well. It's less of a like building up all of the tension and then exploding it outwards till we're empty. And it's more of a just like natural opening and expanding, and then the cup spills over, and we're just allowing like a natural rebalancing effect in our body where it's like, yeah, okay, it's time to release some of these sexual fluids. Beautiful, amazing. It feels great. The pelvic floor is going into these spasmodic contractions, and we're having this really intense orgasmic experience, but it's not like a build up tension and exploding, erupting, just spilling everything. It's like and then the body rebalances. It expels a little bit of that excess energy, but we're not just dumping the cup out upside down and fucking shaking it to empty everything out. It's like you can have this release and then actually still have a full cup at the end of it. And that's another really interesting and fun and generative game to play and approach to take that for me has been absolutely game changing. And that's one of the big shifts between having an ejaculation that has me feeling a little drained and like, okay, I'm recovering back to my normal baseline level of vitality and energy over the next couple of days, to like, actually, I feel even better. That was the appropriate time and the appropriate release to have. And now I'm in more harmony. I'm in greater vitality, and I got to experience this wonderful ejaculatory orgasm. That's like a cherry on top, and not something I'm attached to or fixated on, but just allowing to happen when it's appropriate.
Yeah, and for anyone listening, as we're speaking to these things, if you're someone who is a practitioner already, and you're in the practice of semen intention, as we like to call it, and cultivation and these things, like, when you were speaking, Hawks, just now about like, and eventually the cup runs over, which is even a line from the Bible. Like, I could feel tingles in my entire body. Like, I almost felt, I did feel like a little wave of that energy pass through me. And maybe you did too, and maybe if someone's listening in, like, there's certain words or certain, we are vibrational beings, you could say. And if something that we're sharing is resonating, if you're feeling something right now in your body, and I guarantee you will be if you're somebody who's been practicing this for even just a little while, that's a sign of like the energy actually even right now moving through us. It's always present, and it's our ability to slow down and to tap into these states that's we're talking about. So I just wanted to mention that in case someone listening is like, I just wanted to take a moment to tune into your body for a second and just notice if certain things may be moving right now. That's a good sign. Something else I wanted to drop in here was this idea of, like in an alternate view, you could say that like non-ejaculatory orgasms can also be the byproduct of the accumulation of energy we often talk about. So if you think of, your sexual capacity like a cup, and, you can fill it with your sexual energy. Like many of us are, if we're having ejaculations all the time, we're leaking, we're draining that cup. But as we learn to patch up those leaks and then bring in these different practices to start to build the energy, or even just practice simple semen retention accumulated over time, it's a lot slower. But even if you just notice after 2-3 weeks, you'll start to feel the effects of this, like hands down. Do it yourself and find out. But oftentimes there's like this buildup of energy. It takes a little bit of time to get to just a baseline of like really starting to feel this energy. And one thing we talk about within the work as well is like there's this simultaneous training, because this is like an internal martial arts where we're practicing building and redirecting this energy, not letting it just build up in our balls, in our prostate, but actually to circulate it through our body. And as we build our capacity and as we pattern interrupt these nervous system responses, these neural pathways, and allow the energy to move as we relax into it more, there's this phenomena as well that I believe you spoke to recently on a call with a brother about having this very masculine cultivation of energy and containment, while also bringing that simultaneous relaxation, bringing the yin to the yang, meeting the two at once, and really relaxing into the energy you've cultivated, rather than continuing to focus on just cultivate, build, because that can be another common trap, right? So I was curious if you could share a little bit about that, Hawks, in your experience.
Well, we often say in the training, the more you relax, the more you can feel. And the more you feel, the more the energy moves. And when you're speaking to that, bringing in that yin element, that softening, that relaxation, the opening, that can have that effect to allow us to feel more when we also have that masculine containment and we're holding that structure. I often love to say when I'm guiding breath work, like, you're holding space for yourself right now. Be that container for yourself and be that witnessing observer who's creating the containment and the structure to then really see what's happening on the inside. All of that beautiful feminine flowing energy is moving, emotions bubbling up, sensations, pleasure, whatever it is. It's begging to be witnessed and observed and held by the masculine. And we can be that for ourselves. We can be that for our partner. And so part of, I guess I'll come back to just a little bit about like how you started the podcast. Like, what is a non-ejaculatory orgasm? What does it feel like? How do we know if it happened? Not getting into the details about that, because I don't want anyone listening to this to fixate on something specifically, but the understanding that the more that we can be that masculine container and observer for ourselves, the more that we can start to experience and feel and get acquainted with and familiar with that energy that is moving through us all of the time, the pleasure that's there to be experienced, and it both rise together. The more that we can create that structure and containment, the more that we can create that fluidity and that openness. And there are tangible things as we go deeper down this path and start to experience these orgasmic states more predominantly or for longer periods of time, that there certainly can be experiences where you're like, okay, that was definitely something definitely happened there. But our ability to like relax and soften into it and to be present with ourselves is what's required to eventually be able to actually feel what's in there and what's happening, and to create the container for that to unfold. And so it's a long path, and the method and the system, as you and I have learned and experienced and share, is that process of being that for ourselves, having that structure and that containment, and being the observer for ourselves to allow what's happening inside to be witnessed and to unfurl and continue to open and blossom into its incredible beauty and bliss. So I feel complete with that. It's probably, feel free to mention in the comments if you got questions, or you're like, what are you guys talking about? Or if anything lands and resonates, would love to hear that. But if I could leave just one little sprinkle in there, it's that the men that I've worked with and that we've worked with that have started this path, even really early on, before there's any sense within them that they've experienced this elusive or esoteric idea of a non-ejaculatory orgasm, there is all the time when it's really like, when the practices are really engaged and men give themselves to this, there is the resounding unanimous reflection that like, oh, that was fucking awesome. I didn't have an ejaculation at the end, and that was different and fulfilling and enriching in ways that I haven't ever even experienced before. I didn't know it was possible. And so the carrot can come very early on, but it's also always moving and it's shifting. Like there's always more. We can always go deeper with these things, and just like letting go of the grasping for the carrot and just trusting that like, hey, this process is allowing something new to be experienced within me that's going to be really beneficial and generative and fulfilling in ways that until it's experienced, it's really difficult to conceptualize what that is or why we might want to do it. So trust the process and understand that the process itself is the outcome.
Yeah, the journey is the destination.
Mm-hmm.
Always. Yeah, well, this has been a great conversation today, Hawks. I appreciate you dropping in with me. Appreciate everyone listening in. Feel free to leave us a review if that helps us out. And I appreciate all the people that have. And big shout out to all the brothers in our community who help make this podcast possible.
Mm-hmm.
If you're interested in joining one of our future trainings, check out our website at mensexualmastery.com. And in the meantime, sending you all lots of love. We'll see you next week.
Yeah, awesome. Great to drop in with you, Ben. Thanks for tuning in. To any of the listeners out there, blessings on your day.
Blessings.